So today I want to talk about something that everybody should be a fan of, and that is none other than free games that you can play on your Nintendo Switch right now. And I specifically want to focus on some games that have hit the eShop more recently, so not ones that have been out for years and years. Some of them have been around for a while, but I want to look at 5 different, what I would consider to be are some of the best new eShop games that you can add into your Nintendo Switch library and play for free right now. So the first game on today's list is none other than Tray Racers, and what I will say about this one is that considering it's a free-to-play game, it's not bad for one that if you want to hop into some online matches and race against other players live, it is definitely fun for that. There's some interesting mechanics around how you speed up and actually try to essentially stay as fast as possible in the game, because when you're going downhill, you're going to want to push forward on your analog stick, and then whenever you're going uphill, you're actually going to want to pull back, kind of airliner style, where you're pulling down instead of up to essentially pick up speed on an uphill draft. There was some issues with certain parts of the level design where you can just straight up like get stuck running into the side of a rock and different things like that I had run into, and then you eventually have to respawn, and it seems like it sends you back at the very beginning anytime that happens, which was a little bit frustrating. So you do kind of have to learn the level layouts, otherwise you will end up coming in last, or at least not finishing where you want to in terms of the online racing competition. But it's fun enough. It's simple to hop into. It's simple to understand. The brake control, interestingly enough, is locked to ZL, which, you know, I would expect to be more something like a B or A button, but you can also hit the A button to jump and to go ahead and do various tricks in the air. At the end, whenever you actually are done racing, you can actually go, you know, claim your spot on the podium, even though I guess you can technically stand in the wrong places. It's kind of a kiddie, simple, you know, I would imagine like a lot of younger players are probably on here playing this, but if you want something that's different, you know, it's not a kart racer, there's not items. If you just want something very simple where you're racing against friends online, and considering it's free, of course there's paid options with any of these free games in terms of additional content, but it's straightforward enough, and one that for a recent release being free on the Switch I think is worth mentioning. And Tray Racers you can download right now if you want that kind of free online simple racing experience with some simple level design. You can customize your avatar, you can see other people in the world that you are racing against live in real time, and of course there's leaderboards and various different things that you can look at and compare stats. And I'm sure that there's going to be some more depth if you kind of stay in this game longer term than I did just playing it out for a couple rounds for the video, but one that, considering you're not paying anything for it, I think is worth mentioning, and that's the first game on the list. So next up is a game called Opus Castle, which this is going to be one for survival horror type fans out there. If you are a fan of kind of feeling creeped out as you're going through a dark, decrepit castle, you're an imprisoned girl that's trying to find her way out, and I'll tell you this, I'm not much for survival horror games, and it creeped me out enough to not want to play a whole lot of it. It's not over the top, but if you put a pair of headphones in and you progress through the castle, there's definitely some interesting, wacky stuff going on. And, you know, from what I can tell, some of the controls are a little bit clunky, but they do work well enough. And you also have you're going to look around, you're going to try to find keys, you're going to interact with various different things, you're going to basically trigger very creepy things to happen throughout. At one point, you're going to just see a door shut on you for no reason as a voice is kind of doing these chants in the background. You're essentially looking for a way out and to survive this haunted castle or whatever's going on here. And it does seem like there will be some puzzle solving elements to it, but the one big complaint that I would have with it, just off of an initial 10 to 20 minutes of gameplay, would really just be it needs a map system. And unless if you find one at some point later on, I guess maybe part of the deal is going through and kind of memorizing things and doing a process of elimination to progress forward. But if you do actually realize how dark the lighting is in the game, obviously for that creepy vibe, it is one of those things that it could, I would say, benefit very much from some kind of Metroid-esque map system where you can see where you've been so far and then come back based off if you need to find a different key or something to progress forward. But again, for survival horror fans out there, it definitely seems like one worth booting up. It's one that it just cost you the time to download and nothing else. So I do think that Opus Castle, being a more recent eShop edition for free, is definitely a good one. First person horror survival fans should check this one out. Now, next up is a very chaotic 3v3 Omega Strikers, like soccer style beat 'em up. A lot of chaos happening on screen all at the same time. It's almost a Rocket League style concept where you're playing live online with other players on a team trying to get through and score goals, soccer style. But there's a number of different abilities that your characters have, and it's honestly not a bad game at all. I would say layout and enjoyment wise, like it's very intuitive. There's a brief tutorial that you'll have to play through to kind of learn the basics of the game, and then you're off to the races. There's a bunch of different characters and various items you can upgrade with, obviously the more paid content or play to unlock type of mechanics. But what I do like about it is not only are you worried about how you're playing, you're aiming with the right analog stick to essentially try to get your kicks to go in the right direction when you're trying to score goals and things. In addition to that, you have essentially the ability to beat each other up with your attacks, and you can stagger your opponents to kind of get them off the field for a while, because once they're staggered, you do have the ability to hit them out of the arena. So you're kind of worried about multiple things at the same time. And of course, you have one goalie on your team. You then have two people essentially on the field, and you kind of have to play to everybody's strengths. It can just feel kind of chaotic at times. Really, the entire time it feels chaotic, but it's a lot of fun. So I could definitely see this one being one you would want to perfect your play style with, move up your ranker. There's a big online community behind it, leaderboard and things. And again, like we've mentioned so far with every game on the list, considering that this is a completely free-to-play game, I would definitely recommend this one to fans of, online arena-style competitive play type of games. If you like that stuff, you'll like this. It's Rocket League's kind of like the comparison that comes to mind, but it's honestly maybe a little bit more like Mario Strikers is a better comparison, but considering that we had to pay $60 for Mario Strikers and still got very limited content, I think that this one's a lot of fun, and it's one that I actually had legitimate fun playing through for the purposes of the video. And I could definitely see that if you spent a lot more time with it, that you would want to get character upgrades. You would want to essentially pick your custom items to your strengths, because I did pick one that gave me like a speed boost, the sneakers that you could pick, but you could also pick ones that kind of help you do damage to other players on the field more. So like depending on essentially what you think is your strong suit, you can customize your play style to that. And one that I had a lot of fun with for the video. So Omega Strikers, a big recommendation for fans of online live multiplayer games, 3v3 style. And if you like, kind of that Mario Strikers, Rocket League style gameplay vibe, this is one that I would definitely say go in and check out as a free download on your Nintendo Switch. Now, next up on the list is actually one that I'm very familiar with, because I got the opportunity to do a sponsor video a while back on Guardian Tales, and I spent quite a few hours with this game, and I will tell you that it's a legitimate good experience, legitimately a lot of fun, and it's also surprising at the amount of content that you get for free. I will say that out of every game on this list, this is definitely the biggest recommendation in terms of maybe not the most recent new Nintendo Switch free eShop game, but if you're a fan of Legend of Zelda classic style gameplay when it comes to puzzles and action and things, but in a little bit more of a modern HD 2D type of style, I think that this is a great fit. It has a good story that progresses throughout. I'm not as into the story portions of the game, but all the way through on the gameplay aspect, I find myself enjoying this every time I boot it up. And you do start to, of course, build out a team of characters that come along with you. You can customize each of them. There are so many different weapons and options when it comes to all of that kind of stuff as you progress through all the various different missions and quests. And again, that's one of the things that is surprising to me, the amount of content that's actually available in this game, and really just the core gameplay mechanics as a whole feeling very fluid, very responsive, and enjoyable whenever you get into battles and using your different abilities. And it's definitely got one of those hook you in by wanting to continue to upgrade your character and unlock new abilities, as well as just various different items like a specific gauntlet that you can pick up larger bombs with to then blow up the bigger rocks that you couldn't get through before. There's all types of ongoing upgrades in Guardian Tales as you go along, and the puzzle solving aspects. That's where it really ties back to that traditional old school Legend of Zelda style game where you kind of have to think outside of the box on certain puzzles. Not always the most challenging, but many of them making you kind of stop and think for a minute and then approach them in a different way or come back with a different item. And I will just say that for this being a completely free-to-play game on Nintendo Switch, I think that this is definitely one that you should have in your collection for just about any Switch owner. There's really not a downside to downloading this one, and you may, like me, find that you are really impressed with the game and how it plays and operates and the amount of content that's available throughout, because I definitely did not have the expectations for the actual experience this game started to deliver once I really got into it. In addition to, I mean, you could spend a lot of time going into everything this game has to offer, but customizing kind of like your hometown get up as well, and being able to add in custom shops and different things that you want to do for your Sky Island and Guardian Tales. This is one that I really would thoroughly recommend Nintendo Switch gamers to check out for free right now on the eShop. Now, the last game on today's list is Cyber Protocol Prologue, and I will say that I didn't have very high expectations for this game at all when first booting it up. It just looks like, you know, your more arcade, almost Pac-Man style gameplay at first glance, but as you start to progress through the different levels and you start to really see that there is a puzzle that you are having to solve as you go throughout the level, as well as if you really want to be crazy and go completionist style, you really have to think. You're not able to just kind of go anywhere you want in any direction you want, and God forbid if you want to try to get all the bonus points and everything that are on screen, it is complicated. You'll start to come across different areas of the map that will blow you up, and you will have to try over and over again. It counts your deaths, it gives you a ranker at the end, so I could see this one really, you know, for more arcade style fans of like those throwback games that you want a cyberpunk feel to it. Really nice soundtrack in the background that I've been enjoying as playing through the game. Like, it scratches all those itches, and I think that considering this is free, it's fantastic. I do like some of the mental gymnastics that you have to do to kind of try to see how you're going to get through to the end, and then especially if you're trying to get a lot of the points along the way for that, it can actually be something of a challenging task. And I do think that, you know, games like this, since they're not as prevalent as they once were, and I'm sure there's a number of different indie ones that are quality, but gosh, to see a game like this thrown on the eShop at $0, I really was thoroughly impressed with this. And again, one that I didn't have high expectations for going into, but by the time you start listening to that soundtrack and you start trying to figure out actually how to even approach the exit on some harder levels and then not get blown up along the way, it's pretty cool. I will say, just like, you know, five, 6 levels in, you start to really see some of the difficulty and thought patterns that you have to learn and adapt to in the game, as well as being quick enough too, because you'll start to land on all of these various bomb spaces that want to blow up on you as soon as, whether or not you just barely hit them or some of them are a time delay. There's different things that you continue to learn and that the game throws at you as you progress, as well as just like moving things that you have to avoid altogether. I mean, there is definitely a lot of strategy to this, as well as just like quick mental reflexes in terms of being able to complete some of the later levels. And I honestly can't imagine where the difficulty ramps up to as you really get further into the game, because as mentioned, just being like 5, 6 levels in, it definitely starts to ramp up quick in the difficulty department. And it's one that's designed, you know, to trial and error, essentially. Whatever, you're going to have to do it over and over to get to the end and to try to get the highest score. And yeah, I couldn't recommend this one enough for more arcadey style fans. You want a throwback experience, you want some excellent soundtrack while you're at it, and really cool color design as well in that cyberpunk world. It's a great fit. I will definitely recommend anybody to check this one out for free on their Nintendo Switch on the eShop right now. But I want to hear from you guys at this point in the video, whether or not you're going to be checking out any of the games on today's list, and if there's any recent free releases that weren't on today's list that you would recommend me to check out. So regardless of your thoughts and feelings on everything we talked about today, I do look forward to hearing from you all in the comments down below before you leave the video, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around this topic. Go watch the weekend video next if you haven't already, which is on screen right now. Also, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.